The William Guy Forbeck Research Foundation presents The Aging Paradox.
It's one of those things we all just accept as a fact of life. The older you get, the higher your risk of getting cancer. It seems, well, obvious. But here's the twist. On a really deep scientific level, we're still trying to figure out the why. It's this huge paradox that sits right at the heart of biology, and today we're going to unpack it. So, this is it. This is the central question that's going to drive everything we talk about. Seems pretty simple, right? But believe it or not, this connection between aging and cancer is one of the most profound and, frankly, most stubborn puzzles in all of modern medicine. And the answer is anything but straightforward. And this is what scientists have actually started calling the aging paradox. And that subtitle really nails it. This is the strongest, most undeniable statistical link in all of cancer research, yet it's the one we understand the least when you get down to the nuts and bolts of our cells. I mean, this is the core observation, the stark reality we see in the data day in and day out. As one of the leading researchers in this field, Dr. Alejo Efeyan, puts it, your age is the single most powerful factor that influences whether or not you'll get cancer. It's just an undeniable truth. And right here, this quote gets to the heart of the paradox. If you look at it from, say, 30,000 feet, looking at whole populations of people, the link is crystal clear. But the moment you zoom in, way down to the molecular level, to the tiny machinery inside our cells, the picture gets incredibly murky. There's this massive disconnect between what we see happening and what we actually understand. So, why is it all so confusing? Well, it's because inside our bodies, there's this constant biological tug-of-war going on. On one side of the rope, you have forces that are literally pushing us towards cancer as we get older. And on the other side, you have forces that should be pulling us away from it. Let's take a look at the two sides of this fight. Okay, so let's break this down. On one hand, the logic seems simple. Over a lifetime, our DNA just collects mistakes or mutations. That's kind of the basic recipe for cancer, and we see it happen across the animal kingdom. But then, on the other hand, our own biology is fighting back. Our cells have these built-in safety brakes, like limits on how many times they can even divide. And here's the really weird part. In the lab, it's incredibly hard to get aging and cancer to show up at the same time in an experiment. It's almost always one or the other. And that conflict right there, that's the whole key. It's like a giant signpost telling us, hey, you're missing something fundamental here. The real mystery isn't just what happens, but why the side pulling towards cancer eventually wins that tug of war. So to find those answers, scientists are literally running up against what they call the investigator's wall, a series of massive hurdles that make trying to figure this out incredibly difficult. This wall is basically built from three giant, tricky bricks. First, there's the problem of time itself. Second, the sheer impossibility of controlling for a person's entire environment over a lifetime. And third, the staggering complexity of all the different biological systems that are involved. Let's just dig into that time problem for a second. Your typical research grant, the funding that keeps a lab running, lasts about 4 to 6 years. But some of the most important, groundbreaking studies on aging have taken 2 decades to finish. You just can't fast forward the aging process in a lab without messing it all up. And that mismatch is a huge practical barrier. Then there's the environment. I mean, you can't just put a person in a perfectly controlled bubble for their entire life to study them. It's impossible. So instead, scientists have had to get really creative. With these incredible advances in genomics, they can now essentially look back in time. They can read the scars that a lifetime of exposures have left on our DNA and piece together the story from there. This quote just perfectly captures the whole scientific mindset here. The goal isn't to knock down the entire wall at once. It's about making tiny little holes, finding new ways to peek through all that complexity and just get a glimpse of what's on the other side. So how do you even start poking those holes? Well, you bring the best minds together, but in a totally different kind of setting. And that brings us to something called the Forbeck Forum. Now, this is not your typical massive science conference with thousands of people wandering around a giant hall. Nope. The Forbeck Forum is the exact opposite. It's intentionally small, it's intimate, and it's engineered from the ground up to spark the kind of creative thinking you need to tackle a problem this big. This is what makes the Forbeck format so powerful. It's a space where scientists are actually encouraged to share their newest, rawest ideas, stuff that isn't even published yet. It's all about brainstorming, not, showboating. And by putting senior professors and junior researchers on the exact same level, it just breaks down all the hierarchies and builds the kind of trust you need for real collaboration. But the real magic ingredient here is the diversity of thought. The forum intentionally brings together scientists who normally operate in totally different worlds. So you get metabolism experts talking to immunologists and cell death specialists brainstorming with pediatric oncologists. The whole goal is to break down those intellectual silos and just see what happens when all these different ideas collide. And this all leads to a really profound point about how scientific progress actually happens. Because the real goal of a meeting like this might surprise you. When a problem is this complex, when you're up against a wall this big, progress isn't measured by finding the answer. In fact, that's not even the main objective of the forum. The real prize is actually something much more valuable. Dr. Nada Kalaany, the forum's co-chair, says it perfectly. The most exciting thing that can happen is generating brand new questions that nobody had even thought to ask before, simply because they'd never had these specific conversations with these specific people. So ultimately, the real breakthroughs that come out of a forum like this are the new partnerships and fresh directions for research. It's about planting the seeds for the next decade of discovery and basically drawing a brand new map for the entire field to follow. And that really leaves us with a final, powerful thought. The fight against cancer is a long game, and the next huge leap forward might not start with an answer found in a lab, but with a new, unexpected question asked in a small room by brilliant people who are daring to look at a very old problem in a completely new way.